This is my own indoor cycling app. I built it myself over a couple of weekends and it does what I need, running structured workouts, and it lets me ride my own real GPS routes in 3D. For years, I've been doing all that on Zwift and TrainerRoad. They're fantastic apps, but between them I'm spending over $400 a year, and sometimes well past $1,000 once adding in a couple of the other apps out there. And this was all for software that, when you boil it down, just talks to a bike trainer. And I was only using a fraction of the features that they offer. So now I've got just the 2 features I actually need, and it costs nothing. No subscription, nothing to pay. And rather surprisingly, 100 plus rides later, it hasn't missed a beat, and it's all running on a graphics card old enough to have its own pension. So hello and welcome to this video, and yes, it's a little bit different to my usual tutorial videos, so a little bit of background on how I ended up here. I've been using Zwift and TrainerRoad, probably the 2 biggest cycling apps out there, pretty intensively since 2016. This was back when I was living in a big city in Italy where indoor training made a lot of sense. Between the traffic, the stoplights and the slog just to reach any decent terrain, riding outside was a real faff. And these apps were about as good a replacement as you could get. Then I moved to a small town in Germany, just southeast of Frankfurt, where the cycling outside is genuinely brilliant. There are hundreds of kilometres of paths through the woods, scenic hills, smooth roads, and barely a stoplight in sight. You can head out for hours on whatever terrain you fancy. And with this change, my need for indoor cycling dropped right off. These days, I only really use it for 2 things. 1, structured erg workouts to actually try and get faster, and 2, when the weather's really putting on its full German winter performance, riding my own outdoor GPS routes indoors in 3D. And that's genuinely all I need it for. No races, no group rides, no pace partner, none of the rest. Just those 2 things. But a quick honesty check first. If you're sitting there thinking that's not Zwift, then you're absolutely right. The graphics have a certain low poly charm, and the trees are, let's say, enthusiastically repetitive, and there's definitely nobody else riding with me. Not yet, anyway. It looks pretty much like what happens when someone with no real idea of what they're doing decides to build a bike trainer app on a Saturday morning. And this, coincidentally, is what happened here. So the app itself has 2 halves and they're wildly different in difficulty to build. This one here, the structured erg workouts with power targets and a live chart, is approachable for anyone. If you can follow a Python tutorial and open a game engine, you can build this. Honestly, a morning's work. The other half, riding real GPS routes in 3D, is a little bit more ambitious. This is mainly because the roads and the terrain have to be built from GPS data, so there's a fair bit of messing around with coordinates, meshes in Blender and geometry nodes. So let's take a look at what's involved and where the time actually goes. Under the hood, there are 3 parts. There's a front end built in Godot. Godot is a famous open source game engine. It handles all the graphics, such as they are, the UI and the 3D rendering. The backend is a Python server using FastAPI. It talks to your trainer over Bluetooth, it manages the workout data, saves activities and uploads to Garmin. The hardware is just a Tacx Neo smart trainer and optionally a heart rate monitor, and the communication protocol is standard, so in practice any smart trainer should work. The 3 parts then talk to each other like this. The trainer connects to the Python server over Bluetooth, the Python server and the Godot front end talk to each other via WebSocket, which allows you to get real-time data without any lag. So when your trainer sends power data, it goes trainer over Bluetooth to the Python server, which passes it over WebSockets to the Godot app, which puts it on the screen. The whole journey takes around 30 milliseconds, so it's near enough instant. So that's the overview of how it's put together. Let's have a look how each bit works. Smart trainers use something called the FEC, that's Fitness Equipment Control Protocol, which was developed by the ANT Plus group. The trainer sends you pages of telemetry and you send pages back to control it. It sounds simple enough, but once I started digging into the spec, I quickly realised it was going to be hours of work. Luckily, it turned out somebody had already done the hard part for me, and that's in a Python library called PyCycling. I've linked this in the description to the video, and I'd like to say a big thanks to the author. You've done a really good job with this, and it's saved a huge amount of time. So with that library, connecting to the trainer came down to 2 lines of Python. One to actually connect, and the other one to sit there and wait for information. So once this runs, the data starts rolling in automatically and you get your cadence, your power, your speed every few hundred milliseconds. Controlling the trainer is very similar. There are 2 modes, erg for power targets and slope for gradients. And again, it's 2 lines of code, 1 for each. So there's a simple set target power or a set track resistance. All of the rest, the Bluetooth, communicating with the trainer and so on, is handled by the library. To talk to the front end, the Python server exposes a simple API. In this case, I used FastAPI because it's very quick to put together. On the screen here, you can see the main endpoints. If you want the workout structure, for example, it's a simple GET request. If you want to send a command to the trainer, it's a simple POST request. And the real-time data, that's the telemetry, the power, the cadence, heart rate data, and so on, that streams continuously over WebSocket. and it streams in a structure that looks like this. And that really is all there is to it. Of course, none of this counts for anything if you can't prove that you did it. So as the workout is in progress, either in a 3D world or an erg workout, the app is continuously writing the workout data into a SQL-like database, saving a data point once or twice a second. It sends these data points from the front end to the back end in batches every 15 seconds or so. I did this so that if the app crashed or the connection dropped, which I was anticipating, the ride could then be recovered later rather than lost. When you finish the ride, the server generates a TCX file, which is the format that Garmin uses, and if you want, it'll upload to Garmin automatically. The file then holds every data point that was saved in the database, so that's the timestamp, power, cadence, heart rate, and distance. And as I mentioned, I've done over 100 workouts so far, and surprisingly, touch wood, not one connection drop or crash to show for it. So far, anyway. For the front end, I used Godot, and if you've not come across it, Godot is an open source game engine, and it's getting more and more popular by the month. It does 3D, it does 2D, and it doesn't require you to sell a kidney for a license. It also has a simple built-in scripting language called GDScript, so simple that even I can follow it. So, to the 2D view. This is where you'll spend most of your time if you're actually training. And yes, if you're thinking that looks familiar, the design borrows rather heavily from TrainerRoad. They worked out what works, and I saw no reason to invent it. You've got the usual numbers, the power target, the current power, the cadence, the heart rate, time remaining, and so on. The chart at the bottom shows your workout structure. The blue area is what you're supposed to be doing, and the yellow line is what you're actually doing. And these are updating in real time. One thing that surprised me while building this was just how much smoothing the other cycling apps out there are quietly doing on the data. What you're seeing here on the screen is a genuine erg mode trace, warts and all, not the tidied up version that the other apps tend to show you. Oh, and there's a slope mode toggle as well. On the harder intervals, I find erg mode a bit like pedaling through treacle, so I decided to add a switch for manual resistance control mid-workout with the arrow keys to adjust the slope on the fly. And now to the bit that's, let's call it ambitious, the 3D world. The terrain comes in from satellite data, so the lumps and bumps are geographically accurate, more or less, even if they look like they wandered in from a cheerful indie game from the mid-1990s. The road follows your actual GPS route, and there's also a space mode, which I actually prefer. As you ride, the game works out the gradient from the terrain and posts it to the back end to adjust the resistance. Your position on the route is driven by your actual speed, either from a rough physics simulation I cobbled together, or, with the Tax Neo, its own calculated speed, which is really good, especially once you fold in momentum, so that's the one I tend to use. You can define climbs, and when you reach one, a panel pops up with the distance remaining and the time elapsed. That's me on the Col de la Ramaz in France, which is one of my favourites. And you can't see it here, but the app is actually quietly storing your progress as you go, and that's because I'm planning in the future to add in ghost riding and leaderboards. The way the movement works is actually quite simple. Your bike follows a path 3D, this is basically a curve through 3D space, and every frame the distance moved is worked out from your speed, and your position along that path updates accordingly. For slope detection, 2 invisible points at either side of the bike, one slightly ahead, one slightly behind, and the height difference between them divided by the distance gives the gradient. One thing I did learn, real-world slopes look oddly flat in 3D. It turns out the Earth is very big, and even huge mountains are, in the scheme of things, tiny. So a 10% climb, which is quite steep in real life, looks like a mild suggestion on the screen. So I doubled the height scale. So a 10% slope renders like 20%, and it looked far more convincing. And having looked at Zwift, my guess is they're doing pretty much the same thing. So with that done, we have the 3D world building itself, and this is the part that probably ate most of the time, not the coding. And that's because getting a real GPS route into a rideable 3D environment involves GPS data, satellite data, elevation, coordinate transformations, and a great many geometry nodes. The aim was to boil it down into a repeatable process, eventually automatable with scripts, and that's more or less done. At first, a new route took a couple of hours, now it takes about 10 minutes. So to do this, I start with a route. In my case, I plan them in Komoot and then download it as a GPX file. That gives you a string of GPS coordinates with the elevation data. Then a Python script converts that GPX data into JSON data, sampling the GPX data every 2 meters and working out the slope between the points. It also scales everything down to a 1/10, otherwise the numbers get really big in Blender and Godot, simply because the worlds are too large. With that done, I open up Blender to build the world from this GPS data. The first step is the terrain. Blender has an incredible add-on called GIS. You just give it a location and it downloads the satellite imagery and elevation data from public databases. Once this is done, you suddenly have an actual terrain with real-looking hills and valleys. For about 30 seconds, you feel like a wizard. The next step is to import the route points from the JSON file, and then a Python script in Blender builds a 3D curve from them. Once that's done, I scale the terrain to match, and then position everything by hand so the road sits where it should. It's worth noting here that the elevation data is only accurate to about 30 meters, so the road positioning isn't perfect. Often it's either sitting above or below the terrain, but that gets sorted later as I build the road. So the road building itself takes actually a few steps. One, I create a plane in 2D to go along the route, and this acts as a cutter into the terrain. This is deliberately a bit wider than the final road. Next, I mould the terrain to fit the road. This one is a little bit fiddly, and I ended up building a geometry nodes modifier to make it work. It took a while, but once it works, and you never need to touch it again. Next, I wrap the terrain to the edges of the path. Again, this is a little bit fiddly, so I built another geometry nodes modifier to carve up the mesh around the track so it matches cleanly. Next up, I made a solid base under the road which papers over any small gaps that might be left over, and then finally create the actual road mesh that follows along the path, and that gets placed to sit on top of the base. And that then is the terrain done. The last job in Blender is the scenery. Another geometry node setup scatters tree positions across the terrain, keeping clear of the road corridor with options for density. Those positions then get exported as a JSON file. And then everything else gets exported as GLB model files for Godot, so that's the terrain, the road, and the road base. In future, I'd also like to use the GPS data to have accurate buildings and trees, but that's on a very long to-do list. With that done, over into Godot, there's a separate project that loads up the GLBs and then saves the world out into Godot's own binary mesh format. These meshes are then saved to file and added as an entry into a worlds.json config file, which the main app reads on startup to build the menus and load the meshes as needed. Doing things this way allows the adding of new worlds into the application without actually having to rebuild the application itself. And with that done, with a bit of luck, there is a new world built from a real route and it's ready to ride. And with a few more tweaks, I expect to have it fully automated. There's also an experimental climb portal view, and honestly I'm starting to prefer that to the terrain view, and what you're seeing here is a really rough first pass. I'm going to be tidying this up over the coming weeks. And here's where it all ends up running. On an old Linux box that's quietly been gathering dust in the cellar for years, and it doesn't break a sweat. And that's one of the things I really like about this. Godot is free, lightweight, and properly cross-platform, so the same project runs happily on Linux, Windows, Mac OS, Android, and so on. There are no hidden requirements, no subscription, just the trainer, the app, and a computer that by any reasonable measure should have been taken to the tip years ago. So that's it, my own Zwift, my own TrainerRoad, or my own something or other. Built over a couple of weekends, running on a museum piece, doing the only two things I actually need it to. If there's any interest, I might clean it up and release it properly, package it so it's actually installable, write some documentation, and perhaps even add multiple riders. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd like. And if you've made it this far, then thank you very, very much. I hope you found it interesting, and as ever, comments and questions are very welcome, and I look forward to hearing from you.